Did anybody hear what Ron Rivera said at his press conference when they asked him about the Redskins? And they were talking about what the Redskins are becoming. I just, hang on a second. You got to hear this. I think this was in the press conference like 2 days ago.
Since new ownership took over, people have been using, I think, the old team name, Redskins, a little bit more. Is there anything to that, or what do you make of that?
Well, I know this. Mr. Harris and that ownership group talked extensively about bringing back the glory. And again, what Coach Gibbs did, the traditions, that alumni group of guys that are around, it's hard to escape it. It really is. I mean, and that's the truth of the matter. I mean, and just so everybody knows, we do that with the utmost respect, okay, for the native tribes, for the American Indian. Anytime that's brought up is brought up with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
I'm not buying this. The utmost respect to maybe go back. They're talking about trying to go back to the phrase Redskins and the name Redskins again.
No, they're going to do it.
There's no respect there at all. That's an insult.
I'm convinced they're going to do it. And the tribes, a lot of the tribes, Ed, want it. They want it back.
But a lot of the tribes don't.
But most of them do.
They really?
That's why it was there so long. And I am telling you, the commander thing is done. And maybe next year or the year after, they are not going to be the Washington Commanders. Make up whatever the name you want. That's probably going to go back to Redskins. It's not going to be Commanders. They hate that name. They hate it. The new ownership hates it.
That was an epic fail to start off with just the Washington football team and then go to the Commanders. That was an organization that was so poorly run and so disorganized, obviously from the top down. They had an awesome opportunity to rebrand themselves, and they screwed it up. And look, if they go back to the Redskins, I know a couple of diehard Redskins fans that want them to do that as well. Whether it will be accepted in the Native American community or not, who knows? I mean, the Seminoles, they have a great relationship with Florida State, as you guys probably
and
well
they make
know.
a lot of money from it.
And the Cherokee Nation here in the Southeast, the Atlanta Braves, look, they took a lot of grief for the Tomahawk Chop and Chop On. Well, they got rid of the Chop On logo, and they have gone into a partnership with the Southeastern Cherokee Nation here. They bring them in for a long weekend every year. They got signs all over the Truist Park, and they realized, look, we're in a tough situation. We're not as offensive as the term Redskins, but we do want to keep our name and our identity. So how do we do this? I thought they did a great job. I thought the Indians bailed. All they had to do was get rid of Chief Wahoo. I thought the Indians made a mistake up there. The Redskins, that term and that phrase, I can kind of understand a little bit.
It's offensive.
I get that.
It's a term created by white men and white people to talk about redskins. And Pete, I get what you're saying, that there's certain tribes that say we're okay with it, but there's more than those who are not okay with it, and they see it as a racial slur. Hang on a sec. Would they be happy if they called it the Washington N-words? Okay.
Come on.
But it's the same insult to the Native American people as it is to African American people. It's the same insult. So why use it at all? If you anger one person, if there's one person that's hurt by it, or more than one, why not just stay away from it?
Because there's always going to be one person hurt by anything. People would probably change the Red Sox because they don't like the color red. Are you offended by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? You offended by the little leprechaun that looks like he's drunk?
A little different. The Redskins is a little different.
Why is it different?
It's a racial tinged slur.
Why is it always different for Irish and Italians and Jews? It always seems to be different that way. The tolerance level seems to be much greater when it's Italians, Irish, and Jews than it is for a lot of other people.
But then why don't we just go ahead and call them? Why don't we just go ahead and call them the Washington Kikes?
But so now you take it to the extreme. Are you offended
but
by
that's an insult.
What is a Fighting Irish? What does that mean to you?
Fighting Irish doesn't mean an insult to me because it's not based on the actual skin color of the individual.
Like Coach Rivera just said,
or the religion.
The Redskins have always been talked about in a term of respect by maybe not the current organization, but not the Dan Snyder types. But that has always been, from my understanding, that most of the tribe, they wanted it, they embraced it. It was a sign of respect. It wasn't like, same thing with the Braves doing the Tomahawk Chop. That's not a disrespect. Or the Seminoles doing the Tomahawk Chop any more than I'm offended by animal activist because what the Florida Gators do with the chop there. I mean, that
That's a
kind of
little
stuff.
bit different. Come
Well,
on.
no, but I'm saying that somebody's always offended by something. It doesn't matter what it is.
I understand that there are people who
was
get
the,
offended for absolutely nothing, but this is something that has some meat to it and some reason to it.
I think they made a big mistake.
I apologize. I apologize because I can't remember the man's name, the third baseman for the Cardinals a couple of years ago when they shocked the Braves and they beat him in the first round of the playoffs. He's Native American, and he's the one that really brought up, hey, I'm offended when you do that chop. And, the Braves sat there and like, look, what are we going to do? So we no longer, for a year, they got rid of the chop on logo. They got rid of anything that had anything to do with the chop. They used to have the opening chop in the first inning with a big electric chop, and the place would go crazy. So they got away from that, and they basically reconfigured how they were going to appeal to fans without changing that name. Now, they still bring that music, whoa, whoa, whoa. They do it during a pitching change late in every game, and the fans do the chop. But they don't necessarily promote the chop in any other way, shape, or form. So what you have is a nickname called the Braves. Well, Braves, that's
Braves can mean a lot of
honor
things.
to be a Brave.
Yeah, exactly.
For a Native American.
However,
that is an honor. The Indians blew it because the Indians were named after one of their great, great players early in that franchise history. So the Indians caved. I think they made a mistake. All they had to do was get rid of Wahoo and maybe a couple other little logos.
Well, first of all, Wahoo was stunningly offensive with the big nose and the red skin. That was a blatant
of course
insult
he was.
and an entire race.
It was comical, and right. But you could have kept the name Indians and got rid of Wahoo.
Yeah.
Well, but even Indians, because if you look at it, again, there's tribes in America right now that will tell you Indian is a made-up name by the white man because we didn't come from India. We're actually born here, if you think about it. We're actually Native Americans. So they go for Native Americans instead of Indians. But I'm also going to talk to the Tomahawk Chop here, for instance, because there was no tribe that can actually go back and say, yeah, we used to do the Tomahawk Chop. It was made up by white men to create movies in the teens, the 20s, and the 30s to create that whole Indian Western sort of ideal. They never did that. I mean, it was made up, and it becomes insulting to those who now are proud of their heritage. So I think if you say get rid of it, yes, you should. I think that's an insult.
I think if you took a vote and polled a million,
they basically have for the most part.
I think if you polled 1 million people in Washington, D.C., including all the Native Americans, just polled the Native Americans that live in Washington, D.C. or Maryland, the Virginia area, and asked them if they want the Washington Redskins back, I guarantee you'd be over 50%.
I'll take that bet.
Guaranteed.
I'll take that bet.
Guaranteed it would be. Guaranteed.
But it's just not that area, though, because the NFL considers itself a global game, and of course, it is America's game. So you're dealing with every Native American tribe in the country, and most of them are offended by that nickname.
And we have spent generations slamming Native Americans in this country and basically turning them into dirt under the heels of a lot of people for the purposes of commerce. So all I'm saying
I'll
is,
be surprised if they go back to that nickname. I really will. I won't
think
be
they will.
surprised if they change the name. I don't think what they've got going on right now is working. They may go with yet another name change.
They will not be
see,
the Commanders next year or the year after. It might take 2 years. They are not going to stick. They might stick with. They may not be Redskins, but they're not going to be Commanders. These people hate that name. They hate it.
I want to ask Ron Rivera. Okay, so Ron, you're saying that it's okay and it's a part of culture. Hey, Ron, do you think it's okay if we call them the Washington Lazy Mexicans? Is that okay? Because he's Latino. Is that going to be okay with you if we call it a stereotype, which is really what it is? Redskins is a stereotype. And
so it's Fighting Irish. Fighting Irish.
Fighting Irish show does not deal with the color of an individual. I'm going to say, look, hey, if people are upset about it, that's something else. But red skin in itself is offensive to a large part of the population.
I think I could be wrong here, but when I'm hearing Rivera speak there, I don't think it's uncommon for people in that area to refer to that team as the Redskins still.
I think probably a lot of them do, just because it's habit.
And when you have guys that come back, these former players that were Redskins and they're in camp for whatever reason or doing a promotional standby or stop. And, so, hey, there's a Redskin. I don't think they mean any offense by that. They're referring to, the fact that this guy played with the Washington Redskins, and they're talking about Joe Gibbs won 3 titles as the head coach of the Washington Redskins. So they're referencing that. I'm not so sure that they're coming around saying, hey, we need to change the name back to the Redskins. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not in DC. I'm not really glued to it. But, I mean, what are you supposed to refer to players like Riggins and
it's a great question.
Doug Williams? I mean, they were Washington Redskins. He's not the former quarterback of the Washington Commanders. He was a Redskin. What are you going to do? I mean, it
I think in that point you have to live with it because it's part of history. But going forward, I think you get rid of it.